Hey everybody, this is Will Chow, and here's another episode of Will's Personal Development Show. Today we are talking with Seth, who runs a course called Digital Marketing Career Blueprint. I followed Seth over the years, and he's helped a lot of students, I believe thousands, find jobs in the field of digital marketing, which is a very exciting, growing field where people just can't find enough talent. So it's a great opportunity to kind of start from the ground up. And I really wanted to have him on because that's a field that I work in, but also I feel there's a lot of young professionals who are struggling to find out what they want to do as a passion or get their first job. And really feel like a lot of people could benefit from learning more about this career and then potentially getting that first job and climbing that career ladder. Seth, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Will. It's good to be here.
Awesome. So I want to just get right into it by kind of starting people off by having you explain like what this digital marketing thing is. Like, what is that field and what are the potential jobs in that field?
Yeah, so it's kind of a lot to explain, but I'll try to make it simple. Basically, advertising, maybe the average person doesn't think about it that much, but advertising and marketing is what fuels the capitalistic economy. I didn't think about it much before 2011 when I got into this field, but if you look at the last 20 years, all the traditional forms of advertising are pretty much gone. It used to be TV was king, billboards, radio, yellow pages. If you remember, I don't know if you're old enough to remember the yellow pages. They used to
Yeah, I
drop
do.
the book outside your door. That was the way that small businesses advertised. And in the last 20 years, and we all know this in the last year, I mean, everything is digital now more than ever. Google, $1 billion company, that's where most small businesses are advertising, and Facebook. Those are the two top places for marketing, and then just being on the internet. So digital marketing is this industry that has basically changed and grown in the last 20 years. And the jobs are in managing advertising. Google, as I said, that's how Google makes most of their money. Most people don't realize that. You might think it's through Android phones or through some other thing. They don't make a lot of money with their free, services. They make money when you do a Google search and you type in digital cameras, or like I want to book a trip, a flight or something, and you click on one of those ads on the side. That's how Google makes billions and billions of dollars. It's crazy amount of money. It's millions of dollars it's hundreds of millions of dollars every day, billions of dollars every year. And that's because there are millions of businesses using Google's advertising platform. Again, most people don't even know this is happening. They just use Google. So companies need people to manage, to run those ads, to take care of those ads. Now, that's a skill set that is completely new and learnable. And for the first time in history, you can actually get access to the advertising platforms directly. Like, think about what I like to tell people is, like, back in the old days, it was like Mad Men, that show Mad Men, where big Madison Avenue executives, big accounts, lots of money. The average person couldn't get into one of those boardrooms. Now the average person can get into a Google account, a Facebook account, a LinkedIn ads account, and start running ads immediately, get experience, and learn how to do this. And the opportunity is there because these jobs have blown up, and particularly during the pandemic, but it was a slower growth for the last 10 years. It's really exploded recently. And the great thing is the colleges are so out of touch with what's happening that there's very few skilled workers. People still don't know that this job exists. They don't know how to get these skills. And that presents an opportunity for people that know about it. So I hope I summarized that in a way that's easy to follow.
Yeah, that was a great summary. And just to add on for my listeners, uh, a lot of people assume that advertising or marketing, like they're just parts of a company, but from what I've seen working for many clients and seeing it from the inside, that advertising on Google, on Facebook is oftentimes the backbone of them getting most of their sales or a lot of their sales. So if they don't run those ads and people click them and it gets tracked and that turns into a sale, that business loses a lot of money. So it's actually a very, very critical and growing and a vital part of a business. So there's a lot of potential opportunity for people who want to find jobs in that career, and companies are looking. So that leads me to my next question, which is, okay, so you're telling me that schools don't really teach this, or they're kind of behind the curve. What can someone do to really learn this and really get started?
Well, you know, the way I learned this in 2010, 2011 was through trial and error. I spent about a year and a half from, remember, it was 2010 when I first kind of realized that the internet was for more than just like funny dog videos and, memes and stuff. And I've kind of got, crazy. Like a lot of people, what happens is they like say, oh my God, I can make money online. They start like, I started trying to learn to build my own websites. I was learning about things like SEO, search engine optimization, PPC, building blogs, email marketing, affiliate marketing, Google AdSense. I just went kind of crazy trying to learn, all about internet marketing. I didn't know these jobs even existed, but I spent about a year and a half stumbling around the internet, spending maybe 12 to 14 hours a day, reading a lot of free information, sharing courses with, I had a girlfriend that knew a lot about this. So she taught me some things. I took a lot of, random courses. So you can learn a lot through the web. You can definitely get on YouTube and get on Google and just start Googling these things. The problem, the reason that I, do what I do is that it's almost too much information, and there's not you're not getting like a focused guidance on like what steps to take, and the quality of information varies. But like you can start learning about this stuff just by using Google, like I did, and start to get an idea of what these things are all about.
Yeah, I resonate with that. I many years ago would do the same thing and just go and read all the top gurus, blogs, Neil Patel, and so forth. But I remember back then I was a bit lost because I had all this info, but I didn't know if it was legit or if I needed to get as in depth. And then when these gurus put out these articles, especially Neil Patel, it's like 10,000 words or 5,000 words, and then you feel overwhelmed and you don't know if you're up to snuff. And so it really wasn't until I actually started a full-time job in the industry where I realized, oh wow, they really kind of overload you just to kind of rank on Google, but you really don't need all those excessive details. Yeah. So I guess my next question would be, I think you know, so now you got some skills, um, but there's all these different channels of marketing. There's Google Ads, there's SEO, and all those things you mentioned. Um, I imagine one of my listeners might be thinking, okay, that's a lot to kind of cover. Should I kind of specialize in one? Should I learn them all? Where should I go from there?
Um, I mean, the way I teach, you guys do know I do run a course, and my approach is to learn a little bit of everything. Um, and I would say, yeah, in general, you should learn a little bit of everything. Don't start specializing. You need to sample the buffet first, because what I found is like I learned about everything, and I stumbled and I fell into paid search. I really didn't. I'd done SEO on my own websites, but I didn't want to do it professionally. I had no interest in the kind of work involved. And people do ask me like, what do these jobs actually involve? I mean, that's really the question, because you're not going to know what to specialize in unless you actually get a sense of things. Paid search, what's great about it, PPC, Google, is where there's a huge need for people. Paid search involves managing Google ads, which is, what does that mean? It means actually like writing ads and targeting the right people, and then looking at the results and analyzing data and making adjustments. So it's a really cool mixture of creativity and analysis. And SEO is similar, except it's a much slower game. SEO is something where you're trying to change a website's content. You're trying to change technical aspects on the website. You're trying to get links and build relationships with other websites. It's a much slower process. There's a lot of there's definitely analytical roles within SEO as well. There's also Google Analytics or analytics-based positions. I have a student who got a job focusing completely on analytics, which is analyzing user behavior. on websites. I actually, she can't, she got that job with almost no experience just from my course. But, and I actually didn't even know those types of jobs were that common, but they're becoming more and more common. So, a lot of it's going to depend, somebody who's more like, I'm a writer, I like creating stuff and trying out new ideas and psychology. They might be more inclined to go into a job where there's more copywriting, or you're writing the ads, or you're writing SEO or adjusting SEO content. Someone who's super analytical and likes data and maybe comes from an engineering background, they might be more into an analytics role. But it's all different. Like, I've had a lot of engineers come into digital marketing, and they're much happier, and they use, I just talked with a former civil engineer yesterday. She was very smart, 24 years old, was working for the city of New York. Did not like civil engineering though. Didn't find it fulfilling. Now she's doing paid media. She's being trained by the company she works for, and she's using a lot of her analytical skills on that job. So, I think it's best to get a sense of each thing and really learn, and then you'll, in my experience doing this for 5 years, my students, they find you find your thing you like after you get a sense of everything.
Awesome. And I think this is a good time to kind of segue into kind of the success stories, and more so the benefits and kind of work life of a digital marketer. That's how I found you, through some of the success stories on YouTube. And it's really cool how you can really take something that maybe it's a 6-month investment if you do it right, and kind of transition from a completely different career where you really don't like to something like this, which is really magical, given that a lot of other careers, doctor, lawyer, engineer, take years to kind of reinvent yourself and kind of invest in that education before you can make that money. So can you talk about kind of, for some of the listeners who are kind of not clued in, the expected general, like, starting salary range, the kind of work-life balance, and like type of work.
Yeah.
For example, I feel like remote work, that's something that's definitely very digital, accessible with this type of job.
Yeah, I mean, this field is just really the best. It's so great right now, and I also get, if I heard about this and I didn't know about it, I might think it was kind of like, is that really real, or is it kind of a sketchy or a scam? Because it sounds so good. But let me just explain how this is what's happening. So, first of all, as I said, the demand has blown up. And just to give you some hard numbers, okay, when I started the course in 2016, there were probably 30 or 40,000 jobs on LinkedIn every day. Maybe 8 to 11,000 were entry level. But that's something else I'll talk about. Even if a job isn't listed as entry level, you can still get it with what I teach. But so, okay, it was about 40,000, 50,000. So by the time 2019 came around, it was in the 60s, right? There were about 60 something thousand jobs a day on LinkedIn in digital marketing. And then there are more in Indeed. And then, there's like 5,000 digital marketing agencies in the US, and they individually will hire or recruit people. So the pandemic hit, that number dropped to 25,000 a day in 2020, right? Like, everybody was hurting. I mean, still a lot of jobs, but not as many. So then in the last, 6 months, whatever, it came back up, and now it's been between 90,000 and 100,000 jobs a day on LinkedIn. I've never seen this many job openings. It's crazy. And companies need people that understand these skill sets, and they cannot find them. It is crazy. And one of the most common things my students hear once they learn the basics from me is, like, the hiring managers will say, they get really excited to talk to my students because they actually know the language. So what are you looking for in an entry-level position? Now, this has been proven over doing this with hundreds and hundreds of people over the last 5 years. Your entry-level job, you want to be making between $30,000 and $50,000. Now, that's a big range, but it depends on the company. Like, if you get, mostly my students are making about 40,000, I would say, average. I just interviewed the civil engineer. She was making 60,000 as a civil engineer. Her first entry-level job in digital marketing, she got 2 months after she started applying, is 47,000. And that's an entry-level job. She's thrilled. First of all, she loves her work a lot more. She actually enjoys going to work, whereas she used to dread it. But the basic progression is within a year, you can get up to 60K. And that's my whole marketing. You may have seen it on my website. I say how to get a $60,000 a year career, but that is the industry standard. That first job is just for the experience. So what happens is if you take my course, or students take my course, follow my advice, they're basically learning how to kind of, I'm not going to say get in through the back door, but kind of like how to speak the language and, get through that barrier of entry into that first job. Because most agencies and companies are going to provide some kind of training or support. They want someone that knows the basics and then they can bring to the next level. And my students will be handed tens of thousands of dollars, advertising dollars, as soon as they're hired. And as you get that experience, managing $10,000, $20,000 a month, sometimes $100,000 a month, that goes on your resume, that goes on your LinkedIn. And the most common experience my students have is that within a month of working at their job, their recruiters start approaching them for new jobs. And I tell my students, stay at your first job for at least 3 to 6 months. Most of them stay for about a year, not just because, they like the companies that they've been hired by. They usually build really good relationships, and but the more time they spend at that company, the more experience they're getting, the more valuable that is. And by a year into your first job, you're up at 60K. And then with most of my students, within 2 years, that's when you can get over 70K. And if you've seen any of my 6-figure success stories, those are usually after 3 years. And I know I even have some imitators and some other courses where they say some things like, oh, you're going to make $10,000 a month in 30 days. And that's bullshit. That's not true. There is incredible earning potentials, but it takes time. Did that answer your question? I'm sorry. I felt like I might have gone off track a little bit.
Yeah, I think part of it, and we'll get to the parts you didn't, but I thought that was a great answer in the sense that it's really kind of almost achieving that success slowly. And I think a lot of my listeners, if they follow me for a while, they know it's more about that kind of patience and kind of growth. Of course, I know some of them are going to they're salivating over that 6-figure mention, but I want to kind of emphasize as well that if there's any skepticism, like I'm definitely not trying to oversell this. Like I also have just trying to like put it out there because there are some pros and cons as well. You're not going to start off making a lot of money, but it's about passion. It's about a new opportunity, and it's about kind of growing and building your skills over time.
Yeah.
So
and
yeah, go ahead.
you have to put in the work, but here's the thing, guys. If you look at, like, first of all, look at, I'm a very big critic of college because I think it's a incredibly misleading investment for so many young people. Everybody's led that they have to go to college no matter what their interests are. And 99, I'd say not 99, but like 90% of the people in college right now are majoring in subjects that have no relevancy to any job, unless you're going to be an engineer, maybe an accountant, or a doctor or lawyer. That's like 5 to 10% of the population. People are majoring in history. People are majoring in business, and what they're learning is irrelevant to getting a job. People are majoring in marketing, and they're not even learning digital, which I think is hilarious and kind of crazy. These old tenured professors are running these marketing departments, and they still look at Facebook and Google as a fad. Literally had a student of mine who took a marketing class, heard the professor say, or one of the students said, the professor said, Facebook marketing is a fad. If you can believe that. That is still the attitude in academia. So when it comes to what I teach and how, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So when it comes to what I teach and why I teach it, it's like, I fell into this field by accident. I saw there was still such a need for workers, and I teach things in a very practical way. I could easily be teaching at a college, like someone like me with, the few years, 7 years of experience in the industry. They hire people like me as adjunct professors, and I could be sitting there giving some BS lecture about traditional marketing that isn't used anymore. But I said, I'm going to make this directly available to people. And I'm also aware of the fact that online courses have a really crappy reputation, especially in the like money niche. There's so many crap courses. And one of the things that kind of blows my mind, I've just realized this, is that I'm a genuine person and I actually care about my students, and you can see that in the testimonials. But I'm engaged. And people ask me, can I guarantee you a job? No, you have to do the work, and I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I guarantee you the best shot. And I have the most success stories of any course you've ever seen. But one thing people seem to be surprised by is that I actually respond to every email, that my coaches are so available, and that I'm involved. And when I write back to people, the most common response is like, oh my God, you actually are writing back to me, whether they're a potential student or they're in the course. And I realize like either the expectations are different, or other online courses, they just are not like good. They're not providing support for people, like people are shocked. I like tell people, when you sign up, you're going to get support. And then I actually just write them back and they're like, wow, you actually didn't lie to me. I'm like, yeah. So yeah, I speak, I don't mind speaking with people who are, skeptical at all. If you're cynical, like I had somebody, this happens very, very rarely. A guy bought the course like last August. I never heard from him. And he tried to get a refund just like last week through PayPal. He said, I didn't get a $60,000 a year job in 3 months. And I'm like, okay, dude, first of all, I never said you were going to get a $60,000 a year job in 3 months. Nowhere do I say that. I'm very clear. It takes this long and this much work. Second of all, you didn't go through the course. I can see it in my metrics. He didn't go through the course. He never emailed me. He never submitted an assignment. He never got feedback on his resume. So, that's where I've been really lucky with my students. Say, if you come in and you work your butt off and you get the feedback and you participate, I will support you until you get your job. But if you come in and you kind of expect you're going to magically get a job without learning anything, nobody can help you. And I really hope you don't take the course.
Yeah. And I totally align with that. You have to actually take the course and do the assignments if you want to actually expect to see some progress there. And I think, a 30K to 50K salary range is definitely reasonable, if anything on the low end. So I wouldn't, I hope people aren't too skeptical about that number. I mean, I think that's a very reasonable salary to kind of aim for. So in terms of kind of, getting your start. So obviously you go into more detail in the course, but let's say, this is something that people are interested in, and they start to develop those skills. How do they then go find that first job?
I mean, like, yeah, obviously I teach that, but it's not a big secret. I mean, you have to communicate your value to an employer, and if you can figure out how to do that on your own, then, I think you'll have luck with it. But you have to, and that is like, you have to be able to let the employer know that you know how to do the job. And you have to actually know how to do the job. That's the main thing. It's like when people ask me about that, I'm like, well, that's the thing is that there are a lot of people learning these skills or learning about it, or they have an idea that digital marketing is a thing. So there are more applications in a lot of places being submitted, but you have to basically, I mean, the most general resume advice I give anybody is just look at the job posting. It's very simple, actually. It's kind of crazy. I hear a lot of advice to people about, here's how you should do your resume. And people are looking at their fonts and they're looking, I see a lot of resumes come to me. I give people a resume template and it's very basic. People put in their photo on the resume and putting their hobbies and their dreams and stuff. I was like, dude, this is not where you put that stuff. You put that stuff, that's for the job interview. Once you've shown people you have the skills, then in the interview, they want to get to know you. They want to know your personality, if you're a cultural fit. They want to know if you like sailing or racquetball or baseball or football, right? But some people put it right on their resume. Like, dude, no, this is where the skills go. So I was like, the simplest way to put it is you got to put your skills on the resume, and it should resonate with the job posting. It's very simple. You know, it's so funny to me because I'm like, the job posting is like it's like a cheat sheet, you know, and I would even run to this with people in my course, just because when I was starting out and I was young, I mean, this is what blew my mind. I've been in school for 16 years. I didn't learn one day, didn't spend one day on a resume or how to talk to an employer. And so the temp agency that when I moved to LA in 2006, literally the temp agencies, the recruiters are the people who helped me change my resume. And it was all messed up before. And I remember there's another tip for you guys. Take that, if you put your college degree at the top of your resume, you got to put it at the bottom. That was a big wake up call to me because I had spent all this time on my college degree and I'd always put it at the top. I was so proud of it. And then they were like, no, nobody cares. You got to put your skills. What was your last job at the top? And then, you know, if an employer, like literally they'll be like, we need somebody that knows, you know, A/B split testing. We need somebody that knows PPC. We need to know someone that's blah, blah, blah. They will list out what they need. You just tell them that's what you have. And then so many people don't do that. Because I know this because when I was working at an agency and I was hiring people, we had a posting, and this is how I got my first job. You know, and I haven't even talked about my background at all, but like I didn't have a marketing background. I had just taught myself this stuff. And when I saw a job posting for this position, I didn't even know what the position was, but it said you need to know Google ads, blah, 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 blah. And I basically put together a resume where I basically explained to people, this is what I can do. And then I ended up getting hired. Well, we would get people submitting resumes to me, and it was like literally, I still remember this. I kind of popped into my head where it's like, we need people that know Google ads, SEO, general knowledge, blah, blah, blah. And IT, a lot of IT people submitted. So they'd be like, I know C++, I know, you know, I don't know the terminology, but it was a lot of like IT guys who knew how to fix computers or had worked on mainframes and shit. And I was like, what? Why do you think this is going to work? Like, you literally didn't. It's like having a conversation with someone and they're like, I really need to find somebody that knows how to change the oil of my car. And you're like, well, I know how to track butterflies.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
just popped into my head. I don't know why, but does that answer your question a little?
Yeah, yeah. And if I were to get into the mind of the why young people do that, or because I used to be there, and I think part of it is because they see these job postings and maybe they don't fully believe that they have those skills, so they don't put it on, and then they try and offer up non-related or other things that might impress them when clearly you're saying they don't. So I mean, it gets me to my next question about kind of that catch 22. I know that was a huge thing back when I first applied, but that whole idea of like, I need marketing experience to get this job, but I don't have any. And so, what's the solution? Do you get a, I don't know, side project and start building your skills there?
This is good general advice to anybody, and it's what I teach in the course. And yeah, you got to put together an example, and you have to get hands-on experience. Whatever you're doing, even if it's a little bit, you know, I mean, if you're applying for, I don't know, if you wanted to work in an office, let's say, and they need someone who knows how to use Excel, you got to get Excel and like learn how to do it, and then be able to show them that you know what you're doing. You can't just show up and be like, you know, I read about Excel. This is, you know, there's a good blog. A friend of mine runs it, Byron, called Career Sidekick, and he talks about that. Yeah, projects and you know some kind of demonstration of actual. This blows people away because this is not what employers do. This is how a lot of my students get their jobs. But you do need the skills. I mean, that's the biggest thing you just spoke to, which is right. People don't have any skills, so they think, well, if I just flower up my resume, it'll get me a job. But the skills are the most important thing. But definitely demonstrating, and that's what I teach in the course. In my sales letter, everything you see, I talk about generating your experience. In my webinar, I talk about the whole process in much more detail. I explain that you have to generate your experience. You have to. That's what I did when I got my first job. All I had done is worked on my own websites. I never had a job before in this field, but I had built websites. I'd run traffic. I'd done SEO. I'd done all these things. And I was able to communicate that to the people hiring me. They loved it, you know. So you would definitely want to be proactive like that.
Yeah, that even gets me thinking for my situation, even though I'm a little bit more ahead in the marketing game, but you know, even now when I look at job postings, I'll see a couple things on there that I don't have, like SQL or Adobe Analytics, and I've made that mistake of just saying, oh, well, too bad, and move on to the next one. But maybe you know that mindset of, hey, maybe I could download this for free and learn it, or I mean, I'm sure there's free tutorials. Um, it kind of gets you into more of that winner's mentality.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess my next question is leveling up. I think a lot of my followers are ambitious people. So their long-term goal is to not stay at that 30K or 40K salary, but to one day level up to that six-figure mark or something higher, and really take it to the next level, whether that's as a chief marketing officer or something more senior. So can you touch a bit more on that progression of kind of movement from uh, that entry level to beyond? I know you briefly hinted on that with the recruiters.
You know, it's a very organic process in this field. You don't have to really, it's not like other fields where you have to like hustle and push and maybe cheat or lie or manipulate your way into a senior, to get rise up. Like I've, know people that work in corporate America. It sounds like a terrible place to work. Some fields where it's like there's politics and there's this, and this is very natural. Once you get your hands on those first few accounts, you're kind of like a rookie in a sport. After about 6 months to a year, you're just naturally ready to get a promotion. They're going to put you in a more senior role. They're going to pay you more money. And the great thing is, if they don't pay you more money, you will leave. That's why there's such a good work-life balance in this field, because it's an in-demand skill. So, I had a student who was making 41K in her first job in analytics. She didn't want to, she loved the job. She loved the people. She wasn't even that anxious for a pay raise, but they wouldn't let her work from home. And this is in the middle of COVID, and it was in the middle of the country, and she like couldn't see her grandma. They wouldn't let her work from home. So she just was like, okay, well, I need a new job. She ended up got hired by another company for 55K. This is 11 months after taking the course, plus bonuses. So it's bringing her over 60. And she had that flexibility. And this other job was remote. And that just happened very naturally. Once she had that first years of experience, once you have the 2 years of experience, you're naturally going to be recruited or approached for higher level positions. And then one of my students, Matt, who works at Omnitail, yeah, if you show that you have leadership capabilities, then they're going to want to put you in charge of other team members, and that's when your rate goes up even higher. What I'll say about digital marketing is that I do think, I have a student, Karen, she's like 22, 23. She's making six figures working for Glassdoor, never went to college or never got a bachelor's degree. She just got promoted. She's been working there for 2 years, I think. She's making over six figures, or not over, but six figures. I think basically there is a cap. I mean, first of all, guys, walk before you run, get that entry level job. But jobs do have a cap, and you're going to get, if you get up to 100,000 a year, 125,000 a year, that's really great. If you want to go beyond that in this field, you mostly have to get your own clients on top of your job. But I mean, anybody watching this, like I tell people, come to me, they want to know about the earning potential. And I say, like, I don't know any other field where people in their 20s without degrees are able to get up to six figures this fast. And that needs to be enough for you. If you're like, oh, I want to make $1 million from a job, like, dude, there's no salary job that pays that much at all in any field. You could it's just
maybe
not how
CEO.
the,
Maybe CEO, but other
yeah,
than
but you have, yeah,
CEO,
right. You have to be the CEO.
yeah.
That's not going to happen, But what's really funny is these colleges, I do know people in business programs, and they'll like give these kids a project that's so worthless. It's not even like what I teach. It's like if you were the CFO of Apple, what would your next model of the iPhone be? Or what would your next product launch be? So, and I've had people come to me like this. They're like, I have a sample project of what I want to do and they're using this to submit entry-level jobs. They're not learning to create a project that shows they can do the job that is available. They're like, this is what I would do if I was the CEO of Apple. So they're completely disconnected. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to go on a rant about that. But yeah, man, it's very quick to level up in the field once you're
Yeah,
in there.
yeah, and it's a interesting field. I want to kind of dive a little bit more into what it's like, and just to share my own 2 cents first. I mean, it's really the magic of. I mean, there's different aspects of digital, but I personally love the whole aspect of like this is their website, and there's social media, there's blog posts, there's the homepage, and you're really kind of helping or guiding or sometimes directing the digital facing front of that company's site. So it isn't just a small fad. It's something that's here to stay, and there's a reason why Amazon is doing so well. They realize the power of the internet. Can you touch a bit more on kind of the day-to-day and the work-life balance and just the typical life and benefits, pros and cons of one of these jobs?
Well, the way I look at these jobs, like so I grew up, I went to film school. I always wanted to make movies, and I actually got to make a movie thanks to digital marketing a couple of years ago. But
Nice.
one thing I learned about life is that there's no perfect job. There just isn't, unless you're like, and even, I worked in the film industry, so I know even these actors who are movie stars and they're making all this money, they're working so hard. They're waking up at 3 a.m. You're shooting a scene that looks so pretty, but they've been up for 16 hours. There's no perfect job, right? But digital marketing, to me, for the average person, I think was the best situation where you have a relatively fulfilling job that pays well, that also can give you time freedom, flexibility, and good work-life balance and good culture. The thing about these agencies is that they're young and they're forward-thinking places. It's not like I've worked in a lot of corporate offices or just office jobs, and they can be so stuffy and life-sucking. These are the types of companies where they're going to have a foosball table, a ping pong table. You're going to get paid time off. They're going to have catered luncheons a lot of the time. And it's the Google attitude of like, they want to keep you happy. That's the whole point, and a lot of the CEOs in these companies are very young. I remember I went to an agency in Nashville when I lived there. I remember they had like a bar on the second floor. They were always playing like games and stuff. And it's not like, you're not playing games all day. These people you're doing very intense analytical work, but they understand that to keep people going, you got to give them this balance. Otherwise, you're just going to burn people out or they're going to leave. The typical day in paid search is like, you're on the computer all day, right? And you're examining your accounts. Now, depending on the agency, some agencies, and I try to tell my students to avoid places where you're working on too many accounts. My first job, they handed me 30 accounts with about $110,000 a month in ad spend, like from zero. And this happens a lot of students. Like I remember I was like so nervous, but my supervisor, which happens with most of my students, the supervisor was right there to help me with it. And at my job, at that first job, it was like, I'd work on 3 accounts a day, 30 accounts, 30 days, or I'm sorry, 3 accounts a day, not 30, 5 days a week. It was divided up so that I work on between 1 to 3 accounts a day. And it also depends on the type of client. If it's I had a lot of smaller businesses that were more in maintenance mode. If you're launching a business, it's going to be consuming your attention. You're going to be doing keyword research, trying to figure out what's the right target for this client, what are the right ads, adjusting things, looking at the analytics. A client might have a new sale or a new product or some problem, and then you have to deal with that and make adjustments to the ads. The cool thing about the job, and why my students tell me they like so much about it, is that it is on the paid side of things, is that you see the results, you see the impact of what you're doing. I've heard this from people all over the industry. My buddy Mike, who's a former Marine who got into this field about the same time I did, he always said that to me at his first job, was like, he said it was so satisfying with a small business to make a few changes to their Google Ads account and suddenly they're getting sales. It's really, I think, fulfilling. I think especially for a lot of us, when I was younger, what was I doing? I was working in an office, filling out spreadsheets or doing some other bullshit. And I felt, I didn't have any fulfillment from that. So there's, and it's also, I mean, it is a high energy work environment because things are happening and money's being spent, money's being made, money's being lost. You're adjusting all the time. So it's an exciting, I mean, that's the word people use for a lot of my students. They say it's exciting. It's not like, I don't know. It's not like Homer Simpson sitting at the power plant pushing a button or something. It's not like Office Space where you're sitting there and just like, oh, another report to look at. For SEO jobs, I never worked in SEO, but I have my coaches do. And it's similar because, I mean, you're in the website every day, you're making adjustments, you're looking at data. It just moves slower. You're not getting instant results. But, the people that work in SEO love it as well because it's like being a detective. There's a lot of problem solving. So you're always having to figure something out. So yeah. Does that give you a good sense of things?
Yeah. And I would just add from my own personal experience that I have heard that some agencies are kind of more fast-paced and it can get more stressful. I will say I was fortunate enough to have my first agency be one that highly valued work-life balance and not putting too many clients on an employee. But for any listeners, that is something that you may have to look out for. It's something that, you have to weigh in. I don't think it'll be excessively stressful as long as you're smart with managing yourself and choosing the right firm to go with.
Sure.
So in terms of, let's talk kind of finding the job more. I want to dig a bit more into this before we round it out, because I think this may be one of the most overlooked yet vital parts of the whole process. I've heard from many people who are successful at their careers that like the job hunting, especially the networking, can be a big part of getting that first job. And then there's that common saying, the black hole, the job board black hole, where the candidate applies to hundreds of places and they just get no response or just rejection emails. So can you dive a little bit more into that job hunting process? Because I think if anything, that's where I think your course has the most value. I mean, we've talked about this briefly off the camera, but I have people who, they are trying really hard to get that job, but something is just not switching there, and some of them have spent a long time applying, and it's just not working. So feel free to talk.
I mean, look, there's two things I can speak to. Number one, it's really that disconnect I spoke about before, the disconnect between the skill set and the job. Somebody's a lawyer and they have the skill set to be a particular type of lawyer and they're applying to jobs, they're going to get responses. The most common thing that I've seen with those situations is that either the field doesn't have a high demand or the person applying, they don't have any skills. So like I had a student who Ken, I remember, Ken Choi. I still remember this because he told me before he took my course, he applied to 100 jobs. 100 jobs over the course of a year, and he got one interview. Well, we're just speaking in such general terms because I said this is a college graduate with like a kinesiology or a psychology or philosophy degree applying to what jobs? I don't know what jobs he's applying for. The point is he learned nothing in school. He has nothing relevant to share. There's nothing in the resume that says, oh, I want to interview this person. So that is often what's happening. Or a person is working in a field that is like, there was a time, the problem is people don't have an awareness of hiring trends. And that's why I'm so passionate about this particular skill set, because even just to watch this interview and know that these jobs are where you're ahead of 90% of the people out there, People don't know what's going on in the world of hiring. My dad went to law school in the 90s after a career in another field. And that was a time when lawyers were so in demand. I mean, he got plucked right out of law school and just got a nice corporate job. It was like that movie, The Firm, the book, The Firm, with Tom Cruise, John Grisham. That was hot in the 90s. And the late 80s to the 90s, going to law school was like a hot ticket, and it was super easy to get a job. Then nowadays, not like that. I mean, you can still get a job as a lawyer, but the demand is not as high as it was back then. But people don't know about these ebbs and flows. So you might be in a field where the demand is down. Even in engineering, like when I talk with people in engineering, they'll say, everybody says, oh, engineering so stable. Well, depending on your specialty, some fields, they're already stocked up. They don't need that many more engineers. So people are saying, oh, why can't I get a job? You got to look at the demand, and how many job openings are there? If there's a ton of job openings and people are hiring, you're not hearing back from people, it means your resume isn't up to snuff. And with my course, that's really, I look at people, I take them through 3 steps. If you're applying and you're not getting responses, something's messed up with how you're applying. If you're applying, getting responses, and after the interview, you're not hearing back, then you have an interviewing problem. Then you're having a problem with your interpersonal skills for the most part. And you just have to be very surgical about it. And that's one of the things, I support people on in the course. But I think you really have to examine, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the person doing the hiring. That's another problem. There's a big disconnect, is that people are they're so focused and so worried and so like, I need a job, and they're in a very needy mindset. And that's completely understandable, especially if you are having trouble. But you have to think about it from the point of view of the person doing the hiring. It's like going out on a date. You have to, if you're just consumed with yourself on your date and you don't put any attention on your other person, it's not going to go very well. One of the things I teach my students to do is understand the point of view of the hiring manager, so they can speak into what the company needs. I interview people too who they don't even realize how they're turning people off with their resume or with their interview. I remember I actually interviewed somebody one time who I asked her, where do you want to be in 5 years? Which is a very common question. Her response was like, we were interviewing her for a digital marketing role, and she said, oh, I want to be a social worker. And I said, well, that's great, but why are you applying for this job? I couldn't believe that a person would say that, but there's a lack of education about these things that's so intense. Like, I don't know somebody watching this, why they're exactly not hearing back, but you have to examine yourself. You have to examine how you're occurring to the people that you're applying to. That's some of my advice.
Yeah, totally. I think job hunting and interviewing are both skill sets that need to be practiced, needs to be honed. The whole art of positioning yourself and even crafting that resume and cover letter, that's a whole thing in it of itself that a lot of people just kind of gloss over. So we can all do better there, and that's something that I've learned over time through studying successful people at that process. So is there any first off, any listeners, if you're interested in the course, I'm going to set up a smart link. If you go to this link at no extra cost to you, it'll be my affiliate link. So I'll get a small commission if you purchase through my link. It'll take you to the free Seth's free mini course first.
It's actually a webinar now.
It's a webinar now.
Webinar, yeah. Where I go into more
so,
detail on these things.
Yeah, so if you want to check out that webinar, the pretty link will be just go to willyoulaugh.com/marketing job. Yeah. Seth, is there anything, any closing thoughts, closing advice that you want to kind of give these people?
Look, I think having the awareness of these skill sets and these jobs, it puts you ahead of 90% of the people out there. Most people do not even know these jobs exist. It's one of those jobs where my students get hired and they cannot explain what they do to their families, which is a great job. If you have a job that other people don't understand, you're probably going to be doing pretty well. So just being aware of it is very, very powerful. Again, you can learn a lot about it on the internet. If you want detailed guidance, then I definitely suggest check out the webinar, learn more. I know this is just one interview you've seen. It's your first time seeing it. It may sound a little bit like, still sounds a little too good to be true. In the webinar is about an hour and a half, and I go into much more detail about, you know, how these jobs exist, what they're like, and then more information about the course if you're interested in getting more direct guidance on this. But I hope that at the very least you are now aware that these jobs exist, and it gives you some hope or some inspiration about a field that you might not have known about before.
Awesome. Seth, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for anyone who's listened to this whole thing. Hope it was of some value, and have a great day. Like and leave a rating. Thanks.
Thanks, Will.